Welcome inside Gillette Stadium, everybody. My name is Mike Petraglia, joined as always by Patriots expert columnist for WEEI.com, Christopher Price. All right, Chris, the Reggie Wayne era has officially begun after 14 years in Indianapolis. He has come over to the hated Patriots, or at least that's the way, of course, the Colts fans feel in central Indiana. But it was funny in talking to Reggie Wayne today, he said he can't really worry about what the Colts fans think right now. His job is learning the playbook, going back to school like he told both of us and a horde of 50 reporters, and really learning what Tom Brady and Bill Belichick expect from him.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch him, or it was interesting to see him in the locker room today because he's really starting from scratch. There was some alluding to the fact that, well, he's been in the same system for the last 14 years, and Bill kind of shot that down a little bit, saying that, well, there have been some certain wrinkles that have developed over the course of the last decade plus with the Colts and what they do specifically, or what they did specifically with Reggie Wayne. But he's coming in here, part of a new system. It's going to be interesting to see how quickly he can get up to speed. I wonder if he's going to be able to take at least a few snaps this Friday against the Panthers, just to see what you have with him. But it's going to be fascinating to see how he kind of incorporates and how he becomes fully assimilated to the New England passing game.
Well, he wore the number 87 for many years, all of his career, basically, in Indianapolis. Another receiver, tight end, I think, by the name of Rob Gronkowski has that number here, and he was asked about, actually, you asked him about maybe you could always, something like that's always for sale in the locker room, and Reggie Wayne told you that, no, 87 is over with. His new number in New England will be the number 15. He was on the practice field, on the upper grass fields behind Gillette Stadium on Tuesday afternoon, and he is assimilating as quickly as he can. He was working with Tom Brady and a couple of the offensive coaches, the receivers coach, offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels. In terms of the role he will fill moving forward, you would think it'd be like similar to a role that Deion Branch filled, that trustworthy receiver.
Yeah, I think that there's something to that. I think there's something to the idea that he might take some of Brandon LaFell's snaps while LaFell is less than 100% right now. I think that over the course of his career, he's always been a fairly dependable intermediate and occasionally deep threat, and I think that's what we saw last year out of LaFell. One of the more interesting things is that the Patriots last year had one wide receiver who caught at least 50 passes, who averaged 12 or more yards a catch. One of them was LaFell. If you stack Wayne's numbers up against that, Wayne was also a guy who over the last 5 years, despite the fact that his numbers have dipped a little bit, the yards per catch has remained consistent. He's been about 12, 12.5, 12.3, 12.4. So I think he might be able to fill at least a small portion of that role here in New England as an occasional deep threat. You're not going to be a guy, you're not going to see him as a guy, where Brady's going to drop back and heave it downfield, 10, 15 times a game. But he might be able to do that on occasion when called upon.
To your point, how much can we really expect starting Friday night in preseason game number 3, which by all accounts in historical context has always been a very important game to gauge where a team is ready in terms of the regular season? How much can we really expect from Reggie Wayne?
Well, if he's healthy, and I found some interesting historical comparisons. The best year for a 37-year-old wide receiver was Terrell Owens back in 2010, where he caught 72 passes. Reggie Wayne's not going to catch 72 passes in this offense, but the one comparison that you might be able to make is Art Monk. Art Monk spent 14 years with the Redskins before spending a single season with the Jets. 1994, he turned 37 that year. He caught 46 passes that season for the Jets. If Reggie Wayne catches 46 passes in this offense, I think New England will be very happy.
All right, a couple of fresh faces at practice here on Tuesday afternoon. A couple of eyebrow raisers, if you ask me. Ryan Wendell, offensive lineman who's missed all of training camp and all of the preseason to date. He was back on the practice field. Julian Edelman and Scott Chandler were also on the field. They both left for the lower practice field to kind of get some individual work in. And Travaris Cadet was also back at practice on Tuesday. I find that fascinating given the Dion Lewis, James White development in preseason.
Yeah, I agree with you too. Look, I think Cadet is, let's call it, enough of a veteran to understand he needs to show a little bit of urgency based on what we've seen from the other third down backs at the start of camp. So I think they're going to need to, I think he's going to need specifically to kind of step it up a little bit. I think Ryan Wendell right now projects still, even though he missed a sizable portion of the summer. He's been on PUP since then, but he missed a sizable portion of the summer. He's a guy who right now projects to be one of those two guards. I think Trey Jackson has still played well enough to take one of those starting guard spots. I think right now Shaq Mason might ultimately start the year as the backup to Ryan Wendell.
I also think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but Ryan Wendell also has some experience as a center, and given the fact, the uncertainty with Brian Stork, who again missed practice here on Tuesday, that has to factor in as well.
Exactly. I know the Patriots were looking at a couple of different youngsters at the center position, possibly as a backup center. David Andrews, Klein as well has been has kind of rotated in there over the course of the summer. But I think right now, I think your point is very well taken in that you don't have Stork for a while. You have a guy in Wendell, or you haven't had Stork for a while, but you have a guy in Ryan Wendell who's played the position at a very high level over the course of the last few years in the National Football League. Wouldn't be surprised to see him get at least a few reps on Friday against the Panthers.
I know you wrote about this on It Is What It Is, weei.com, the blog, our proud and very reliable football blog. Devin McCourty. Everybody was wondering after Saturday night, what did it mean that Devin McCourty was playing on the corner? Even he, after the game, said, it didn't feel good, and I know it didn't look good out there. You had a chance to talk to Devin. You wrote about it. What was his takeaway 3 days later?
He said he's just got to keep playing. You know, in this week, there's a new set of challenges. There's a new offense that he's got to go up against. And Mike Giardi from Comcast asked him, well, will those new challenges involve your old challenge of playing safety? He just kind of smiled and said, we'll see. I know you guys were out of practice a few minutes ago, and he was running through drills with a safety. So right now, as we sit here on, Tuesday, leading up to Friday's game, it appears he might be moved back to safety. I think the real wild card in all this, and I know we've talked about this before, is the overall performance of Terrell Brown. I think they want Terrell Brown to take that job, to be that number 2 cornerback. I don't know how much, maybe it's experience, maybe it's personnel, whatever the case may be right now. I know that they're kind of working through that, but like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if we came out on Friday. The two teams came out Friday. They lined up. Terrell Brown was at one corner. Malcolm Butler was at the other corner. And you saw Devin McCourty back at free safety.
That's exactly what I would expect to see on Friday night in Carolina as the Patriots go through their real dress rehearsal for the regular season. Terrell Brown telling us on Monday when he spoke to reporters, the thing that he loves playing here in New England, the reason he really came here is you're held to a higher standard, and I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, I do too. I think that what we've seen from Terrell Brown to this point certainly suggests that he can be a competitive cornerback in the National Football League. He has the track record, he has the experience. I think it might be right now a matter of getting incorporated into the system. We saw this last year. Even the best secondaries need time to gel, need time to work together. They need reps. We saw it last year. Rivas, Browner, McCourty, it took time for them to learn how to play together. And I think maybe that's a little bit of what we're seeing here this summer. Terrell Brown getting up to speed in the New England system, learning how to work with these corners, learning how to work with the rest of the safeties, and seeing how it all comes together.
Absolutely. Whether you're talking about the secondary or last year, the offensive line, it takes time. And what you see in preseason is not what you see at the start of the regular season, and what you see at the start of the season, not what you're going to see toward the end of the season, and hopefully another playoff run for the Patriots. We'll wait and see. I'll wrap it up for Tuesday here at Gillette Stadium. The Patriots have another practice on Wednesday. Then they have a walkthrough Thursday, leave for Charlotte, and the preseason game Friday night in Charlotte against the Panthers. Follow all the coverage on weei.com. For Christopher Price, I'm Mike Petraglia, weei.com.